Hi, parents. I don't know if we're live. Things seem to be lagging here, so I'm not sure. But I hope that I am live. I wanted to jump on to share with you something somewhat briefly. A lot of you probably know that you are a victim of parental alienation. But for people that have seen my video for the first time, because sometimes I know that the video gets shared. So if you are new and you haven't seen my work before, I wanted to share with you what parental alienation is, and also about the five-facet system that we developed at Victim to Hero to help you deal with parental alienation. So anyway, for those that are not familiar with what parental alienation is, it's a situation where a parent or someone, it could be a step parent, it could be other people, who would interfere with the child's relationship with the other parent. And it usually happens in divorce or separation. So things like bad mouthing, manipulating, influencing the child. It could be by saying things like, your mom doesn't care about you, or your dad cheat on me, or, your dad is an alcoholic, or your mom doesn't pay child support, things like that. Putting the child in the middle of adult problem, the adult conflict, and essentially using the child as a weapon against the ex-spouse. So that's parental alienation. And a lot of the time, it's interesting. I would look at different conversation out there, and people would refer people to me that I hear them saying, "Oh, I don't think I'm a victim of anything. It's just my ex is this and my ex is that," or how their kids behave differently when the kids come from the ex-spouse family, right? So when the kids are with you, the children are happy and good, well-behaved, loving children, but then in front of your ex, suddenly the children behave differently. Or, when you pick up the kids, suddenly, the first half an hour, the first few hours, the first day or whatever, the kids were different. They cold and defiant and distant. And then as they spend more time, as you spend more time with the kids become warmer and nicer and become their authentic self again. And then when it get closer to the time that the kids are scheduled to go back to the ex, suddenly the kids change again, right? When you see that kind of signs, that is a good sign that the kids are being influenced by someone. The kids are not their natural, happy children that themselves to be. So anyway, so those are the situation that you would consider that you potentially could be victims of parental alienation. So anyway, what I wanted to share today is actually I recently did an interview with Dr. Erica Bowen, and she had this podcast series, and it's called The Hope Makers. So Dr. Erica Bowen actually is a really well published author with a lot of experience, also clinical experience in the field of domestic violence as well as parental alienation. And she also has a lot of influence in the legislation in UK and in Europe. So anyway, she recently interviewed me about parental alienation, and I would say I've done a lot of interviews. And by the way, I see you guys watching in the chat room. Please say hello and tell me where you're calling from. Let me know who you are, and also if you can hear me properly. But anyway, so I have done a lot of different interviews because I am very passionate about sharing my story as well as spreading this message. I really think that unfortunately parental alienation is a very serious problem. It's such a toxic, such an evil form of abuse, and yet there's not enough people and there's not enough conversation that address this topic. So I'm going out there and I try to have this conversation with as many people as possible. And so I have done quite a lot of interviews, but I would say that this interview with Dr. Erica Bowen is probably one of the most intimate interview that I have done, where I share my story. But more importantly, I would say that this is the first time that we share about the five-facet system on how to deal with parental alienation. This is where we actually finally start revealing what is it that we use to help parents out there. So if you are curious about this is an audio form. I'm going to share the link in the comments. So in the chat room, and it's going to be a pinned comment hopefully, so that it would be easier for you guys to see. But I also, let me see if I can share that screen with you guys so you can see what it looks like. But okay, so here it is it showing? I hope that it's showing. It's not very clear to me if it's showing. But anyway, so the podcast is episode 20. The podcast series is called The Hope Makers, and it's by Dr. Erica Bowen. So in this particular episode, it's about an hour long, I believe. And in this episode, I share about my experience. As well as, like I mentioned, the five-facet system for dealing with parental alienation. And this is addressing really all aspects of how to deal with parental alienation, from, um, how do you manage yourself, because that's really the core of it all. You cannot control. And hi Bridget, thank you so much for letting me know. Yeah, really great, thank you. And if you guys could please like and share this video, really appreciate it. But yeah, so the first facet is looking at yourself. How do you heal? How do you deal with this grief of losing your children? How do you cope with um, having this attack that being just directed at you by the abuser, the alienator? So that's the first facet. And then we also talk about the facet of dealing with parenting skill, because you are not handling the situation from a normal range parenting situation. You are now dealing with um, your children that is being put in a very hostile environment, and your children are trauma victims. So when you deal with your children, you don't get to be a normal parent. It takes a lot more awareness. So this is to do with trauma-informed parenting skills. And then we talk about how to deal with the alienators, who is obviously an abuser, and their motive is about control and about hurting you. So how do you handle that? And then we also talk about how to handle the system, which is the court system. A lot of situations don't end up in court, and that probably is a good thing. But sometimes you have to. Sometimes it's not your choice. Sometimes a lot of the complex and more severe case of parental alienation, you deal with false allegation, you deal with CPS, Child Protective Agency, you deal with civil court, you deal with criminal courts. Like I said, a lot of the time you don't get to choose, especially if you have a very malicious alienator. They will go out of their way with false allegation and everything else. So how do you deal with the court system while you trying to deal with everything else? And that's very complex, and it takes a lot of awareness, and the attitude of how you approach that is very important. And then also, how do you deal with the community, right? Because parental alienation doesn't happen in isolation. So there's always a community that is surrounding your environment. And by this, I mean like church, extended family, friends, school system, right? Where your children go to, your children's friends, and things like that, right? So there's that aspect of it. So that's the fifth facet of the system. So this is the first time in this particular podcast that I share about the system. So if you guys are curious, feel free to check that out. I'm going to put the link in the comment. Also, I know we've been kind of busy. Our focus has been a lot to do with trying to lobby for law changes, for system changes, because we recognize very much that while you could be very strong, you could be doing all the right things, but yet somehow the system can still fail you. You could have the best lawyer, you could have all the evidence, you could be the most well-behaved parent, you could have done everything right, and sometimes things still go wrong. And that has a lot to do with the system. And I'm not just talking about corruption, I'm talking about the system even at its very best is inadequate. in protecting you and your children. And yeah, hi, thank you so much for saying hello and thank you for watching. Where do you guys calling in from? Yes, said, yeah, hi, thank you. So because of that awareness, like we are fully aware that the system is inadequate, and unfortunately, really, when you're looking at the whole United States, there's really no. It's really sad, and I mean, if you do see something, let us know. But really, there's no legislation out there that is adequately protect you and your children. So one of the things that we are doing, and we're working very hard, and one of the reasons why we haven't been really active here with you guys, is that we've been focusing a lot on pushing legislation. And so there's a lot of work to do. We have been focused a lot more in Texas. We're starting to focus in California. We are also looking at the federal level. So for example, this last weekend, we had a meeting with a congresswoman, and had very positive feedback out of that. We also have a meeting with a senator in California, which we will have a follow up in person meeting. So things like that. So we're working on a lot of this. 2 weeks ago, a group of us, that represent quite a large number of organizations. Is not just Victim to Hero, but also the Hero Circle, Texas Team 2503. There's a veterans group, there's a mothers' rights group. So there's like 54 organizations. So there's a group of us that went and really met with a lot of legislators and the legislative officers to discuss about parental alienation in Texas. So we spent quite a bit of time at the Capitol building in Texas, last week or so. We also had meeting with the Supreme Court Children Commission in Texas. We also had a meeting with child protective agencies in Texas and various other organizations. And so we're trying to have this dialogue, open this dialogue, and we try to see how can we implement something that can help parents and help protect the children, because within the four corner of the law right now, parental alienation is not being recognized as child abuse. And unfortunately, what has happened is that everyone is distracted. Everyone's thinking that this is a he said she said thing. Everyone think that this is a mother rights group versus the father rights group or the feminist group, and everything get lost, while everyone forgot that at the end of the day, this is about the children. It's a child protection issue, and nobody is noticing that the children are being abused. And so while the system is trying to go, oh, we don't want to hurt the mothers, we don't want to hurt the fathers, we don't want to make the law to make it difficult for mothers or father or whatever, everyone forgot that nobody is looking out for the children that's being caught in the middle. And so that's what we are trying to push. We want to make this change. And when we had a conversation with these organizations that have a lot of influence in the legislation, as well as how the system, including the federal level as well as the state level, looking at how this is being dealt with, it's so interesting how everyone was looking at us and go, whoa, this is a paradigm shift. You guys are pushing for us to recognize that this is the child protection issue, not a custody issue. And we said, yeah, exactly. This is a child protection issue. It's a child welfare issue. It's not about family court. It's not about child custody issue. And hi, Debbie. Thank you so much for calling in from Australia. That's amazing. I still call Australia home, by the way. Thank you. So anyway, so when we pushed it, and it was so interesting because even one of these government agencies that we had a meeting with, they actually started this conversation with us saying, they said to us, they didn't think that we come to the right place. They said, guys, we only deal with child welfare, only, right? Deal with child welfare problems. I don't know why you guys come to us to talk about parental alienation. And then I had to then talk to them and said, hey, this is a child welfare problem. This is very much a child welfare problem. Hey, you guys are looking at this wrong. This is a very much a child welfare problem. I am one of those child. I'm now an adult. I am still suffering from this. And I have this whole organization, the Hero Circle, which consists entirely of these adult children, victims, who are now still suffering from this. So when we presented this, and there's so much research and data, we're not just talking about these specific stories that we share, that we experience, but I mean, just looking at the data, the number, and when we show this to them, people are just shocked and they just go, whoa, all right. Okay. This is we have a lot to think about. We never look at this as a child protection issue. Now that you brought it up, okay, let's have more conversation about that. So things have been pretty promising, but I will have to say this. When you're dealing with the system, right? The system is a very slow moving machine. It's a bureaucratic system. So it's not going to move very fast. Anything that we're doing now, we have to be prepared for the long term. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But not only that, it can't happen just with me, my team, or these 54 organizations. We need more than that. So, all of you out there, like Bridget is in New York, Debbie's in Australia, anybody out there, you guys, we need a lot of you. We need all of you behind this because we need to push the change everywhere. And this is another thing that's interesting, right? When we go to the legislators and we say, hey, you guys, we need your help to make changes because that's right now, the law doesn't recognize this as a form of abuse. So these victims have nowhere to go. There's no resources for the victims. There's no support. There's no protection for the victims. And the abuser don't get held accountable. Like we need this change. And when we go to these legislators, they all ask us, they were like, oh, so is there any other states that already have this so that we can just maybe copying them? Uh, see, everybody's waiting for somebody else to start first. And every state we go to, that's the question. Every legislator, it was like, oh, is there somebody else? Is there any other state that have already done this? Well, somebody gonna have to start. Let's just start it from Texas, from California, from whatever state come from. You guys are lawmaker. You're the leaders. So it's your job to start. Why are you waiting for somebody else? And hi, Mary. Mary's from Canada. We need this in Canada too. And by the way, we're going to have an event coming up very soon with Brian Lutmer. He's an amazing attorney in Canada. Just amazing guy when it comes to parental alienation, and that interview is coming up. I know I haven't posted the date, but we're going to be talking about case law in Canada. Canada is very exciting, and we have a lot of exciting stuff in Canada. So he's going to come, and I'm going to interview him to talk about what do you do when it comes to parental alienation in Canada. But anyway, like I said, so this has to change, and so we need a lot of work, and that's some of the things that we are working on. I just wanted to come on and share a little bit of updates with you guys. Sorry, Cynthia is also from Canada. Hi, that's amazing. Thank you so much. But yes, there's a lot of work to be done. We're going to also have Dr. Klewa coming back. If you guys haven't seen him, he's an amazing, he's a pioneer expert in this field. He published two books. One is called Children Held Hostage, that was published by the American Bar Association years ago. It's like almost one of the very first uh, really extensive publication on parental alienation. And then very recently, I think it was just last year or so, he published another book called Parent-Child Reunification, and again also published by the American Bar Association. He has a huge database of clinical data. I think more than 1,000 cases of reunification therapy. So he's and we have done one interview with Dr. Klewa. Um, we have done one interview with Dr. Klewa, and really, you will never find him anywhere else online. Like that's the only interview of Dr. Klewa that you will find anywhere. So he's So you can, if you haven't seen that, I would highly recommend you looking for that interview. And then he's gonna come back, and the next interview I think is July 16. That particular interview is going to be specifically on reunification, and we had a discussion with him. He's prepared, and we're going to be talking about all different level, different scenarios for how to deal with reunification, from very mild case to very severe case to even cases of adult children who have no longer um, who are no longer within the court system, and you have no contact with your children. So we are going to be interviewing him about all of these different level of severity of alienation. And so that's coming up on July 16th. We have uh, Dr. Steve Miller coming back. You guys remember we had an amazing interview with Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller. So if you haven't seen that one, again, also make sure you watch out for that one. But he's also coming back, and again, we're also going to be talking to Dr. Miller about reunification as well. So, anyways, these are some of the updates. If you are not already on our mailing list, please join the mailing list. It's on our website at victimtohero.com. Please like this video. Please share this. Let me know if you have any questions. I know I haven't been on very often, but we are here. I know that we are so behind with messages. I know we got a lot of messages from you guys, and we also need your support, like I mentioned. So please, thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you guys very soon.